back to another episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, the show where we talk about all the crazy stupid stuff that people do in marketing and how you cannot do crazy stupid stuff, but instead learn about a bunch of stuff that people are doing and learn the skill of trying on those ideas to see what fits you and what does not fit you. Because while there are many marketers out there who will tell you that their thing is the secret sauce to doing your thing, it's just not true. Some things are going to work for you. Some things are not going to work for you. And one of the greatest skills that we can have as individuals, both in our personal lives and in our business lives, is being able to try on ideas and see which ones fit and which ones don't. So this is what we're here to do on the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. And when you're thinking about crazy stupid things, you might have your own definition of what that means. So I will create a common definition for us while we are going through the conversations as part of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. Crazy, things that you do over and over again, hoping for a different response. Stupid, things that you're doing just because someone else told you to do them, but you don't know why you're doing them. So that is how we define crazy stupid on the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. And our conversations here are all about how to not do those things. But instead, do more meaningful stuff, because who has time to throw away crazy stupid things? And today, I'm really excited about our topic because for those of you who know me, I love a good mashup. And we are mashing up two conversations that we actually have spoken about before on the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, but never cohesively as one conversation. We are talking about communities, and we are also talking about growth. So if you go back in our archives, you will find things on growth. Go back in the archives, you will find things on communities. But how do these things come together to do a thing that we are hoping to do? And if you guessed it by my intro, you will probably guess that there are lots of different ways that this can happen, hence why we are having a conversation about it and not a very easy downloadable PDF that can give you all the answers. If you are watching us live, thank you for joining us. We would love for you to also get into the conversation. So wherever you are watching us, there is a comments box. So on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, there is an opportunity for you to put in your comments in the chat. We would love to hear your perspectives, your experiences, your questions, your insights on this conversation as we go. The more people who get involved in the conversation, the more robust it makes. More robust of a conversation it makes for all of us. But I always feel like I get worn out by the time I do the intro. This is not, I'm not here to just talk about stuff. We are here, Tracy and Olivier, to have this conversation about communities and growth. So let's learn a little bit more about Olivier before we jump into the conversation. So, my friend, can you tell us a little bit about you? Where you come from, how you got to where you are, and why we're here having a conversation about communities and growth.
Yeah, excellent. So first, thank you so much for having me on your show. Really appreciate it. I'm very excited to be here. So a little bit about me. I am a marketing manager at Rittal Systems, which is a global manufacturer of enclosures. Very exciting business. Probably the hardest thing ever to market because it's just metal boxes. I also do consulting work on the side under my company called Au Boulot, which is a slang for at work in French, since I'm from Quebec. And I specialize really around marketing and the ability to go and create. One of my specialties is really around communities and creating a lot more sort of like want out of what you're going to get than your traditional marketing. And that's something I really love and love talking about. Just a little bit about me.
Yeah, well, this is great. And so let's talk about this concept of communities, because just like crazy and stupid, I think there's lots of different definitions that people might have for communities. So Olivier, when you are thinking about your concept of community, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think there's obviously lots of variations of what people consider communities. But when we're talking about in terms of marketing, and I'm talking about a community, I'm kind of looking at it as like the logos are kind of like the branding of your tribe. When you become part of a community, you feel that you have connections, and you'll also have a lot more interactions with other community members. What it really means to me is to be able to take somebody in a group of people, put them together, and have a conversation around a product or a service that fulfills their need for that time, obviously, but as well allows them to stay and stick around and talk about it, because it's not a single time purchase. You're not going in, you're not going to create a community around, let's say, your pasta, but you're going to create a community around cooking. And I think that's really important to do so, because in today's day and age with marketing, you're inundated with garbage. But if you have a bunch of friends that, because they're part of the same community, you're going to be a lot more open and perceptive to, on products and solutions that you may not have been in the past sitting alone by yourself. So community to me, in terms of marketing and sales, it's really kind of creating a tribe around your brand, and the logo becomes kind of like your stripes, and where everybody feels connected and feels there's something there that they appreciate about that brand or that product or service and the people within that community.
So when you think about the possibilities that exist within community, I mean, I think from a marketing perspective, it's pretty common for people to look at creating communities just for potential customers. But who really needs to be in a community? Is it just potential customers, or what else can we do with that?
Yeah, and I think that's, if you're looking at it just from perspective customers, it's kind of going to fail, right? Because you're not putting people in a bucket and then calling on them when you need to sell more. A community needs to give back equally what it's taking from right? So if I look at it from a book written by Marcus Collins, For the Culture, if I remember correctly, when we look at it, a brand is if you look at it, it's kind of facilitate the community to allow it to have a common language around a product or service. Even when we're talking again about a business community, not necessarily, other ones, but it's really around having that common language and understanding and having value from being part of that community, even if you only jump in once in a blue moon when you need that product. So I'll give a great example of fountain pens. So fountain pens are having a big resurrection in the market. It was a $1.2 billion industry this year, or last year, if I remember correctly. What it is that companies realize, if you create a community around your fountain pens, you're not selling them every day to the same people. But those people feel connected and get exposure to new products or ideas. They get information on maintenance of how to clean your fountain pens. They allow other community members that may have stores, papeteries, which basically sell fountain pens, papers, and all the knickknacks you would need. And they allow them to be part of that community to sort of bring people locally together in real life. And as well, allows them to stay within a virtual community. So when I think of buying another fountain pen, if this company comes up and has a limited edition, special, unique one, they're going to give it to their community first. And that's really important, because the community is going to give you feedback on the value of that pen, how they perceive it. Was it up to what they believe the quality of that company is? And it also allows you to grow your community, because word of mouth, as everybody feels very excited to go and share this, certainly within their fringe and niche communities. But that's what you're trying to build. You're not trying to build a big CRM, database of people that you can call on and say, hey, I have a special 15% discount. Mm-hmm. So a community is a lot more about building, like I would say, a permanent collection of customers that become friends that support your business, your enterprise, and your fellow, partners in the products. That's how I would perceive it. And I think it's really important for people to realize that, hey, look at it, just in marketing, we know this, right? 77 to 80% of purchases are done through friends and family recommendations, right? Word of mouth referrals. So if people if they're sitting in a box by themselves, they're not going to go anywhere. Right. So if you don't build a community around you, so you need your community, then you need your community to also introduce you to new products. That's how it grows.
I love this. I love the concept of the permanent collection, because I think a lot of times, if we extrapolate this to like, how do we start building a community, right? At some point we have some kind of cold experience with somebody, right? Or maybe it's lukewarm if somebody has referred you or given an introduction. But there's we'll call it lukewarm. It's not like hot connection at that point. But I think there's also this commitment, or like I was using the phrase earlier with a friend of mine, conviction, right? Of taking then like warm opportunities and turning them into a permanent collection, instead of just saying transaction today. And there's a lot of, I think specifically now that it is theoretically or technically easier to create like an online community. Very easy, right? You can have a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group with a click of 3 buttons. So technically it's very easy to have the container for a community, but without that underlying like investment in, if this was a permanent collection, I'm a big fan of books, right? So like if I'm creating a permanent collection of books, I want to have like I want to have bookcases for them. I want to like, how do I want to organize them? How do I gain more? When do I rotate out? Do I rotate out, right? Like having answered all of these questions. And so when you're doing the work that you do in community, what would you say are some of those like foundational questions that an organization needs to ask themselves about their permanent collection before they go about collecting things in that collection?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And that's such an intriguing way, right? Because we are looking at it from a sales perspective or an organizational perspective. And their goal is to create a database of leads, obviously, that they can go and send off products to and hope to convert to sales. When we're looking at communities, we have to take a step back. If you're building a community just around your product, you already failed because it's not possible. So again, if I take the analogy of the fountain pen, you're not building around just your product. You're building it around what? Around the industry. And you're starting there. So the foundational blocks is really, it's going to be all the partners, the retail stores who are selling that product. They may sell multiple, all your competitors are going to be there. They may not, they may have a unique, but the question ends up being is that for you as for your brand, you need to associate yourself with one, the partners who are speaking to the people, because that's the step one. Step two is to create a space, like you said, on Facebook or any platform that allows members to come back and talk to you, and where you answer questions. You become that sort of directory of facts, answers, and questions kind of place. Third, you have to create something that's tangible for people that they feel really uniquely important. That I love this. When we're talking about a retail product, it's easy, right? Because it's a fountain pen. Everybody can have one. Everybody in the world, if they know how to write, they can have one. The problem is when you're talking about a product that's not necessarily a retail. Like, how do you do a service? If you're a consultant, how do you do it? Well, it's the same way. What we're doing here in your show, it's exactly the same thing, because we're both in marketing. So we're both talking about marketing. When marketing talks about sales. So we create synergy between us, and then we will grow our networks because of this. And that's the same thing as a community. As opposed to a physical product, I'm now taking a service. But if it's just Oliver's service, well, okay, it's just Oliver's service. But if I create a service that all of us are talking about, yes, I will get some referrals. You'll get some. Everybody wins because they get to ask a lot of questions, so a lot of different experts, as opposed to coming to see one person. Mm-hmm. And so a community needs to be that. It needs to be something in a foundation that starts off not about the product or the service you're offering, but about the industry itself. Then the next step will be more focused around the niche products you're offering and what combines. If you're the only one offering a very unique niche service, well, it's not going to be a big community because you're the only one. So you need to figure out where your products can intertwine and have value to your other people, other consultants or other agencies that can pull from you and you can pull from them. And you sort of create this. It's the same thing as belonging to local associations, communities, like meetups and groups that talk about a very specific. So if you sponsor an event, you become part of that community, and that becomes part of your community because now you're saying, hey, I sponsor this because I believe in this. And then I can talk about to them and say, hey, would you want to connect with me on my group? Yes, why not? Because I felt a connection already. You understand where I'm coming from. So a community is not based on the product or the service, but rather on the industry. And then you layer it up to the point that you do have a group of people are talking. Reddit's a great place to do it, like doing a subreddit or to do a Pinterest. It would be great as well for people. There's a bunch of ways you can communicate in a virtual world, but I honestly believe at one point you need to have a physical location where people can come and meet up.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to be next to you. It could be simply in different places, but you need to create that space where people feel a connection.
Mhm.
So that's where you get a community and you grow. And then once you have a community, I mean, it's boundless. People bring people into it that really believe in it.
Right. Okay. There's two things there that I want to touch on. So let me make a quick note to come back to one of them. Can we talk about competition? Because I feel like as you describe it, there's also a lot of people would be like, well, I'm not going to get in a conversation or in a community with my competitors. I don't want to attract business to them. I want to attract business only to me. So what are some of the things, maybe I'll frame this in two different ways. What are some of the competitive barriers that stop people from creating a meaningful community? And then what are some ways that we or other marketing folks can help people get past those barriers to see the benefit on the other side?
Yeah, and it's a great point because I think a lot of people look at it as a zero sum game, right? So if I'm going to give business, then we're three marketing people doing exactly the same thing, but the one person is much more charismatic than me. I'm not going to bring anybody in my community because they're going to take the business away from me.
Right.
Well, I think you kind of already failed, right? Because the idea should be that there should be enough people there that everybody gets serviced. But at the same time, it's really for the individual down to stand out of that community. It's to bring them in their own community. So if you're not able to talk to people, if you're just trying to sell to them, you're for sure going to lose out. And then communities are not for you.
Mm.
But if you're coming in with the right frame to say, I want to build a community, and whatever comes of it, it's a pro bonus. But if you think about it, very few times you're going to be really worried about your competitor because we live in a world where anybody can Google search, right? Anybody can go on LinkedIn and find exactly what you do and find 3 other people who do it. And then if you're very lucky and you're one of 3 around the world, well, perfect for you. But then, your customer base is going to be small. But if you combine those 3 people and you have a unique singular place for people to connect with you, you're going to win no matter what, because now you're getting 3 different perspectives on the same subject. And if you think about, like, if I were to take a YouTube channel talking about cars, if my YouTube channel only talks about cars and only specifically one type of car, well, I'm going to get everybody who are interested about that car, right? And everybody thinks, oh, this is brilliant. Not really, because it might be a very small community. It might only be when I have a question about that car. But if I talk about cars in general, and then I bring other communities from other car communities into it, it opens a door to have conversations about certain things that are not just unique to one brand or one type, but rather all cars, policies, environmental regulations, and so on. And once you do that, you're having this cross-pollination of platforms and communities. And if you don't do this, it's going to be at one point a dying breed because you're going to find yourself phased out. You're going to constantly be searching for new customers. This allows you to sort of stand out within a community. That's how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because I feel like, again, at the logic level, people get the benefits of cross pollination. And this is even one of the things I commonly say about scripts and narratives is that, well, I might say something my way and you might say the same thing. Like you might describe crazy, stupid marketing differently. And if we describe them differently, we actually create the opportunity to resonate with 2 groups of people instead of 1 group of people. And I'm still going to resonate with my people because of the way I say it. But now more people get access to the idea because we're saying it different ways. And it's one of the things that I think is not ignored, because I don't think people are ignoring it intentionally, but I think it's something that people miss when they're so focused on, let me just create this one, this community is for women in their 40s who blah, 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 blah. Classic I help statement strategy. It's just it's very limited. And why limit ourselves if we don't have to?
It's a really good question because I think there's a value for some people. For example, I think one of the groups I follow is Monday Monday Girls, which is a marketing and sort of like entrepreneur group of women that specialize really around one very niche market. It works for them because that's their audience and that's who they grew up with, and that resonates with them. And the people that follow them will follow them for that reason. I think it's perfectly fine, because if you're not part of that group, you can still follow, you still can grab some information. It doesn't necessarily mean you're out 100%, but you won't be able to be really part of that group. And that's fine. I'm also open like to the idea that we should all be every group, but it doesn't always work out that way. I find what's really important about a community is that you have to be inclusive, open the door, but explaining exactly what that community is about. For example, if you want a community that does not talk politics, there's some communities you just, no, I don't want to hear a word of it. I don't care who you voted for, what you believe in, we're not going to talk about it here. And other communities are very open to everything. Look, yeah, talk about everything, we don't mind. And I think that's part of building the community. You need to make decisions, what's your ultimate goal with this community. It's also maintenance, because communities are a lot of work. Right. They're wonderful, and once they're active and once they're working, they'll give a lot. And you're going to find all kinds of people from all different walks of life showing up within that community, as I'm sure your audience is so wide ranging, but your core group of people, they'll resonate with you because they recognize themselves in you. And I think that's also how you build your community, and who you bring into your community, and who's going to be your co-host of your community. And as well, who you're partnering with, whether they're, technically maybe competitors, or they could be, enhancing your business offerings. But it's important to map that out. You can't just walk in and say, I'm going to start a community tomorrow. I'm going to show up at a coffee shop and put a post on LinkedIn. I mean, you could. It kind of works sometimes, but in very few times. And I think it's really important to be able to build that community in your head first, map it out, and then create it, and ensure that it reflects who you want and what you need out of that community. Otherwise, you're spending a lot of time to build a community that no one wants your service. It doesn't really work.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you touched on goals there. So let's kind of meander into this other part of the conversation that we're here to talk about, which is growth. And again, when we think about communities, there's a lot of good intentions, I think, that go into communities, but then there's also a lot of, what is this doing for me? I've done all this work, I've done all this design and mapping out, and now I have people, but it's not generating revenue, it's not generating conversation, it's not generating growth. So when we look at connecting this concept to a desired output, let's start with where do people fall flat?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's a really tricky one too, because there's a lot of reasons why people, if you walk in with just one ambition to say, I want to grow my business 30% through this community, you're going to fail, right? Because it's not possible to do that. You can triple your business very easily if you do it properly and you really have something that resonates with your whole community. But it takes a long time to build a community. And I kind of put it this way, as a customer journey, right? So from a prospect to a lead to a customer, or back into just being an influencer or a champion of your product, it really depends. You can have people in your community that are going to be agitators. They're not going to be customers ever. They're trying to test out because they don't believe what you're doing. So they could be naysayers going, this guy in this agency, how does he know this? What made him an expert? There's always those people. But it's part of building, when you plan out your community, you need to be aware of who's going to be a champion, who's going to be a follower, who's going to be an instigator of problems, because there's always going to be one or two, and who's going to be potentially a customer. Because once you figure out that, you're able to focus your energy, convert those people, and maintain everybody else, because they're part of the ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So where people fall flat is if their goal is to convert everybody 100% by the end of the year. It's just like, what? No. When you're building up a community, like anybody, when you started off with one follower, mm-hmm. one crazy person who followed you, and then the next crazy person, and then I think you are at 14 or 15,000 followers now. That doesn't happen in 30 minutes. If it did, I wish, because that would make our lives easier, right? But it takes a long time, and you have to build that revenue. How many people follow you, then unfollow you because it was no longer needed for that community? They're not part of that community because they're just not buying that product or that service, and that's fine. But it's really about building it in phases, but understanding your roadmap. And the most important part I feel about growth is ensuring that you have a call to action for these people. Is there something for them to do? that can bring you business. And in return, you're giving them something.
Right.
You're not just like, thank you for showing up. I'm so glad. Now, oh, now everybody take out your wallet and pay me. Like, that doesn't work, right? Like, if it did, shoosh, I'd be richer now from all my meetups. But it doesn't work that way. So I feel it's like, as long as you understand, like, hey, I'm going to convert these people eventually, either to be champions of mine, to go and announce my product to everybody else, and ask people, because once you're a part of a community, you say, hey guys, do you know anybody who's looking for this particular service or this particular product? I have it, right? Yeah. And then think about a marketplace. The people who are on the Facebook marketplace, the people who are most successful selling their junk afterwards, is the people who have a good group of people that go and ping. I have a friend, if I'm looking for something, I just send her a message and somehow she finds it in 30 minutes. It's because she's so much into Facebook, she has all current connections. And it's kind of like, that's how I look at it. You need to create that community that you can ping that question to the community and say, who would be buying this product? And somebody answers you because they have an expertise. And that's why they're following you. They're not going to be a buyer. They're going to be a champion of yours. Like your mom sitting in the corner going, you could do it. That's what you need. So a community isn't just a CRM. It isn't just a leads funnel. It isn't a pipeline. It is really a group of people that are going to give you feedback, that they're going to give you referrals, and they're going to champion for you. And where you fall flat is when you let them down. That means you no longer engage with them. And that's the worst thing, because once you disengage from them, they're not going to just remember that community. They're going to remember who brought them into that community.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, every time you say something, I have like 3 other things I want to say, and then I have to figure out what direction I want to go with this. So this came up in a conversation that I was having with actually a joint community member. We were in the same community together yesterday, about the relationship between community and collaboration. So one of the things that came up in that conversation was how collaboration generally has like an outcome or an output of some kind that we're trying to achieve, which I think if we're looking at this from a growth perspective, then we do have something we are trying to achieve here. And so what are your thoughts on like treating community members as collaborators as we move towards whatever goals it is we have for each of the participants?
That's excellent. Actually, you have to, right? So your community isn't just a collection of people, like we said, we kind of know this. It's also, if you can use that community to build something, it's amazing. So think about Kickstarter. The people who are part of that community that follow you and that give money to buy that product, whatever crazy idea you have, it isn't just a community of people who are potential customers. They're also going to be influencers. And if you engage with them and say, hey, you know what do you think of A or B? And you allow them to have input, that community is going to get stronger just because everybody wants to be heard. And it's important to hear them. If you're not listening to them, again, if you have an instigator, you want to listen to them. If you have a naysayer, you want to listen to them because you want to hear the negative as much as the good. And you want to show that as part of a community, we're here to bounce ideas. Your ultimate goal is to sell that product. Right. So if everybody loves it, or the 90%, then you kind of guaranteed a solution that's going to be viable. Mm-hmm. If you go off and say, okay, guys, thank you for showing up. Here's the product. Who wants it? Right. The numbers are going to drop. They're not going to be the same. As much as people thought they would love it, they might not be. Mm-hmm. One of the things I love to say is that whenever you're starting a business, the first thing any mentor is going to say is like, get a customer. Go off and say, get a customer. And people are like, no, everybody loved it. No. People love the idea. Get their money. Right. And it's the same thing in a community. If you don't get them to give you some feedback, then you're not getting their money because you're not getting them to engage with you. Then what do you have? Right. You have a name. That's it. So the most important part is really getting that engagement. And there's many ways of doing it. It's not just in one singular way. There's many ways you can do it, depending on the product, depending on the service you're offering, and also depending on your size of your community. And if you're a global community, you obviously can't do it all in person, but there's many ways to engage. And one of the things that I found one community I really enjoyed, they'll give out a hackathon kind of idea. They'll put a problem out and they'll say, everybody, what's the solution? Pitch it in 2 slides. And you can get together with people and say, what do you think? Some people and do it by themselves. But that engagement gives you tons of data, right? And asking, if you just ask surveys, you'll never get information. But now you've done something that they get to enjoy. They get to share the results of all that feedback. And at the end of the day, they feel part of it. If you don't make people feel part of a community, then you don't have a community. You have a gathering.
Right. This is, I think, an important thing too, because Again, when I look at what the tech stacks do in a community arena, it's really the gathering, right? I'm going to gather people into this space somewhere. But I want to come back to this idea of like bouncing ideas and engagement, right? So again, I think a lot of people, especially when it's a free community or a low cost community, people are just like, yeah, I'll come. Why not? It's $13 a month, right? Like I'll just come and see what this is about. And then I've seen in a lot of those types of scenarios that people just like, it's like they are hanging out waiting to be served something. And they're not there to like actively participate. So what are some of the things? I mean, I believe you also need a catalyst for those types of things. So what are some of the things you've seen be most successful in terms of a catalyst to create engagement in, I mean, people have their own version of what a community is supposed to do for them, but like create the engagement that starts to move the needle towards momentum.
Sure. Great point. So I'll use an example I'm doing now. I'm part of the marketing meetup, which is a UK-based meetup group. They get up really around in real life events, gatherings, and it's a basic sort of setup, right? You have a speaker who talks about something that they're going to educate the audience to. And then you have the host, which sometimes will be me or somebody else. And then what we do is we basically sort of introduce, and then we chit chat, and it's network. The catalyst is the speaker talking about a specific. For example, we had Julia who talked about TikTok, and to a lot of people, TikTok is like hit or miss, right?
Right.
But she had a very, here's what you do, here's what you follow, and you're gonna see some success. No guarantees, but there it is. She was the catalyst to start the conversation for those who were interested. But you're right, a lot of people just show up, they listen, they absorb, and they walk out. They had their drink, they did whatever. But the people who stay, that's the community. Because the people who stay then interact, that's the beginning of your community. That's where you put the seeds of information. Then the next phase is those who return. And then they become part of it. They want to help, they want to introduce, they want to talk, they have stuff to share. And if you give them a space for it, that's where the success of a community grows, because as long as people feel they can do something, they can engage. So how to do so? You can do it in simple ways. You put up a board on the wall and say, what do you think is going to happen in the next 5 years? TEDx events always had that, and I loved it. I've seen them at Collision, which is in Toronto, or used to be in Toronto. They would have huge ones. You would put up stickers everywhere and say, okay, I think it's going to happen this year, or whatever. The idea is, as long as you can create engagement where people feel that their intelligence is being asked on, if they want to, they'll share. But I feel much better if I know somebody feels like, hey, you're here for a reason. I believe in you. Let's share the information, as opposed to you're just here to listen, okay, and hopefully buy. That doesn't work. So I honestly think having that interaction and that ability to take a group of people and engage them so they're actually giving you input, even though maybe most of it you already know or maybe not that useful, each one might be like, wow, no one thought about that. That's kind of unique. But they get to learn something and you get to learn something. And it's really important to have that. Otherwise, no, it doesn't work, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that is a really cool way to look at it, is that, first of all, this idea that my intelligence is being like requested.
It is, I think, because it's really important part of communities, right?
Yeah. Well, and again, like, it's really interesting if you again, we peel this back to like a lot of people assuming like, here's the tech stack. I'm just going to create a Facebook group and like invite a bunch of moms to come to it. And then we're going to have like conversations about what motherhood is like. But there's a lot of people then who come there like, well, I just want to consume what other people think, or like, I'm in this mindset of like, what do? I don't know what to do. I'm not like bringing value to the table. And I think that that's a really interesting and very important piece of the community intention, is that how do we get the people who add value to the conversation in the conversation? Because if we have a whole bunch of people who are just sitting back waiting to consume fountain pens, then like they will consume their fountain pens on their schedule for consuming fountain pens, and that's it. Right? That's the maximum deliverable.
Yes and no. I think it's because when you're in a community, like you pointed out, if you have a bunch of moms sitting around, let's say we're talking about new moms having babies. So I'm excluded because even though we've had babies, I don't know. I'm not a mom. I didn't have a baby. So I have to be honest. I don't know. So, but that community is going to be different. So if I look at it from a business perspective and I want to do something, if I'm selling, let's say, equipment for new moms, then that conversation has to be focused around them and their experiences and what you're bringing as a solution, but as well allowing them to have their experience go out. Right. Because if I'm selling, let's say, I don't know what new moms need, but let's say something to hold a baby, and I show something, it's not like a group is going to give feedback. But if I'm listening to them and they say, oh, the worst thing is that strap across, I can't hold the baby. If I lean over, I feel like they're falling out. There's a little bit of information, right? But that conversation allows that group of people. And if you do it properly, it's not just one product, but multiple products can learn and benefit. And then the mothers could benefit too, because they're talking among themselves and they're seeing also what expertise is bringing into them from a business perspective, not just a collective of moms, but actually a business who's selling to these moms. Right. And to go back to the fountain pen point, as a retail, no, because if I create a good community and I talk about something that's new, my consumption might be one fountain pen that I will have per year, because otherwise I'm going to have 30,000. Well, all of a sudden you come up with something that's very unique because you've built it up as part of a story to your audience within the community, and the community's kind of built it together. Will I buy one? Most likely I will, if I'm really part of that community. If I'm on the outskirts of the community, I'm not that keen on it. No, but then it's fine. I'm still part of that community. I can talk to people about it. I can show them, oh yeah, they had this cool pen, but it's not for me. But for those who really want to be part of that community, they're going to buy it because they felt they had an input on it. Mm-hmm. And I think where a lot of companies fail is because they're kind of like, they're going in with that whole, the old Ford, like you can have any color as long as it's black kind of idea of the Ford car. They come in with this idea that, well, you're going to buy it because we built it. It's like, oh, it doesn't work anymore. There's too much competition and you could build too fast today. Right. So to me, a community is really where you can go and engage with people, get their feedback, build better, build more variance, and allow people to feel part of it. And like I said earlier, let their intelligence of what they feel really knowledgeable about to go out and share. It might be a small little segment of it, but who cares? Then they get to share, they're going to learn, they're going to grow, and they're going to share more.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I'm a big believer in the build together phenomenon. I also think that and maybe this is kind of just, again, like history and where we're coming from, but a lot of times when people have an idea of creating a community, that they have to have it all like figured out before they launch it, which I also think plays into the idea of that we're not building this together. I built this for you. You come, you enjoy it. I'm Disneyland. Like I built this for you. You come, you enjoy, but like you don't dictate the rides. So any advice for people who are like really bought in conceptually from this like build together, but maybe don't have experience of the flexibility or the amount of pre-design that needs to go into that before a launch?
You're not like this answer, but yeah, you have to pre-design it. You have to be Disney. The rides are set. And the reason is because if you're building a business community and you give it too much space, it's going to get lost. Right. And then people are not sure why they're there. Mm-hmm. The focus for you as the business or as part of the businesses within the community is to ensure that even though we're talking about a lot of stuff and we're getting a lot of input and we're giving out and we're taking in, we need to make sure that we remind them at the end of the day, I'm here to sell you this service. And you're here to also want to buy this service or help me find people who buy, because otherwise this community will fall flat because I'm building it for this reason. Mm-hmm. But so you need to create a space for people to be free. You need to create a space for engagement, feedback, input, and you need to give something. You always need to give something in the community. It could be information, it could be anything, but it has to be engaging enough. But if you let it go too loose, I've seen that as well, it gets lost. Now, I'll use the example again of the marketing meetup group. They set the system, they set it all up. It's like a cookie cutter. You're showing up and you're doing what they've said. And the reason they want this is because for them, it's very important that we follow this because that's how they believe in it. Mm-hmm. what we talk about, it's marketing, it could be marketing and MarTech, it could be anything. It's important that we still keep to the foundations, and the speaker can do what they do and the group can do what they do. But the idea is set so that everybody feels comfortable and it's repetitive. Why people go to Disney? Because they feel comfortable in it. But can they give feedback to Disney? Yes. Does Disney take that feedback? Of course they do. They have surveys. They say, oh, okay, that doesn't work. People throw up on this ride. We better change it, right? So it's about building a foundation and a roadmap, but there might be a few side roads people can take to come back to the ultimate road to get to the destination. And that's what I was saying earlier about planning. If you don't plan your community, you don't put a foundation in place, you're gonna kind of like spend a lot of time and not have a lot of success.
Right.
When you're talking about a product, is even harder, right? Because that product, if it's not like a retail product, if it's a commercial product, you really have to build it around what that product serves. And your ultimate goal is, what do I want? Do I want it just people buying that product, or do I want people to follow me and then I want them to support me to go and sell it to other people, bring this product into other products because it's part of a product that's a component that fits in here. And I think that's where it really becomes important to create that roadmap, because otherwise you're going to spend a lot of time, meet a lot of people, maybe spend a lot of money, but get very little out of it. Right. When we're talking about a business community, when we're talking about a personal or fun community, that's a whole other story. I agree. Then you build it together and you kind of find it goes where it goes.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting too, because I'm sure there's people who have, like, first of all, that makes really good sense to me, even though I have an identity as a collaborator and I like to build things together with people, generally because I live in the spaces where a thing doesn't exist, right? Like I can't just have a fountain pen. That's my problem isn't that simple. I need to probably build something, but there's a lot of things that we want to feel as part of a community, and whether that is like the creator of the community or the participants in the community. And then there is also that deliverable, right? Like, this community exists for a reason. And if, like, earlier you were talking about like how we can get people to return. And I think that like Disney is the magician at this, right? Like, you go and you experience the experience of one of those parks, and there's very few people who go once. Right? There's a lot of people who go. I've been to Disney World 14 times. And I have like half my life left.
Just for a note, you strike me as a person who loves Disney, so I love that.
That doesn't even include Euro Disney and Disneyland and Tokyo Disneyland. Like all the other Disney things that I have done, because you have that experience, it makes you want to return. And it's interesting because one of the things I always find really amazing about Disney is that so much of their like brand experience is based around the thing they want to create so that people return, right? And in the Disney scenario, it's magic, right? Create magic. You want to come back and experience the magic. That's what makes you want to return. Is everyone out in the world trying to experience magic? No. Personally, I am. So that is why I continue to go back. But when you have like so much of the rest of your business also entwined in that reason for being in the community, I think that's also a contributing factor to making this work in a sustainable way. And we're talking about hiring standards and like all of the different things. I interviewed a lady once who worked at Disney in like customer experience. And I was like, if you can work at Disney in customer experience, you can work at this tech company in customer experience. But she was telling me the story about how she was working one of the rides and a little girl had left a doll behind. And so she went back and found it. But instead of just like giving this girl the doll back, she came back with a story about how Tinkerbell had gone on this adventure with the doll because they had to do this thing. And I was like, that, right? Like that, nobody wrote that script for her. She was just like living the experience. And that's an in-person example. I think those examples are also available digitally. But how much of this do you think is really more of a like business culture play than just a community strategy?
Well, that's a big question. So Disney is obviously a different one, right? Because they have built a whole industry around understanding their customers. And we clearly, because customers don't seem to mind the price because the prices keep going up every year and it's crazy prices.
Yeah.
But Disney's understood what they're offering their customers and created their community and their really a safe space for people to feel what they want to feel. And when you look at, and again, depending on the type of community, we're not, if you're talking about a smaller community or a very global one, I think the premise is still the same. Like you said, it's all about understanding that the people that are part of that community. So when you create a community, you may have yourself and five other people. As it grows to a couple hundred or a couple thousand, it's not just going to be you, it's going to be a few people. So it's really important that each person in the community has the same goal and understanding what they're there for and understand what the community members are giving to them and what they're going to give back to the community members. And it has to be universal. It has to be very much like Disney, like the experience has to be universal. You can't show up, like again, using the marketing meetup as an example, they have a universal output. It's not a cup of tea. It might be everybody's cup of tea, might not be, I don't care. But that's what they're offering. That's what they set up. So I appreciate it because it's simplified. For somebody who's looking for something different, they might not like that community. They might want it to be a lot more different. They're not going to come back, and that's fine. And I think that's where you need to understand that you're going to win some, and you're going to have outliers, and then you have your core group. So to go back to the beginning when we talked about filling up that bucket of core group people, real enthusiasts, champions of your community, it's the most important part. You need to find the crazy people who love what you're doing no matter what. Because they're the ones who are going to talk to people and they're going to be selling it for you. And in your community, you need to make sure you capture those people, and then you make sure that you make them feel welcomed. Because if you don't, if you sort of leave them on the side, they'll become quiet, they'll become distant, they'll find a new community, they might disappear. The ones that you want to keep are the people that you really feel they're going to champion for you, your product, your brand, and they understand where it's coming from, and they're going to give you honest feedback when you mess up. And I think that's where community. You mess up, you can tell your community, "My bad, I messed up," and people feel like, "Yeah, it's cool, it happens." Right? You don't end up on every social media with everybody screaming at you that you shouldn't be out of business. You've created a space, it's a safe space for people to interact. But you need to find the crazies who start off with, who really believe and love that product or service, which it becomes more difficult in certain instances, but easier in other ones. But it's really important, and I feel like for growth in the future with AI and everything, where you can't tell what's true, being part of a community, you can reach out and touch people once in a while. Well, shouldn't be touching people, but you know what I mean. But you can talk to them on their community. You can see each other every so often. You can have one-on-ones. It's the most important for growth. Because if you don't have that community in the future, we're going to blend in with all the AI. It's becoming too easy. And companies who rely only on AI, hoping to, I don't need any marketing people, I have AI now, they're going to go down the dinosaur route, because it's not going to work out, because customers are not going to be entertained anymore. And we see this with social media, the disengagement, where people are just viewing like a movie to waste time. They're not engaging. And platforms are struggling with that. You need the engagement. That's why I'm saying communities are number one, because the more people engage, because you're asking from them to engage, you're taking something from them because you're saying, "I believe in your expertise." That's where you're going to have leaps and bounds of success, versus somebody who's only pumping out AI stuff on social media and, "Hey guys, we're all 15% discount on my service."
Yeah, I think that it's here to create value, right? And if we are creating value, then this is the path to growth, right? It's the path to buyers, it's the path to brand champions. It is that. And we all have, every business, every individual, we have our unique way of generating value. And I think it's also interesting to look at even that as like a roll up. What are we doing here, right? If I'm going to show up and I'm a marketer and I'm going to do XYZ community tasks today, like what is the value created for that? What value exchange am I hoping to get out of my people? When do I pay attention? I mean, always pay attention. Like, how do I pay attention to the people who are participating in that? How do I invite in new people? Like, how do I profile the people who are a yes and super engaged? How do we find more of those people? Instead of just saying like, "Oh, I'm going to come into the community and post once a day, and then once I'm done, then that's it," right? Like, "I'm going to invite 8 partners into the community this month." We can get very transactional again very quickly from a community point of view. But if we have that really good clarity, that same goal, as you said, of like, this is what we're here to do, and this is how I contribute to that, and this is how you contribute to that, and this is how the members contribute to that, then we get to track against that path of success and let go of things that aren't working. And again, once you get big, there will inevitably be things that come up that you're like, oh, that kind of went off on a like weird branch, and we don't really want it to go off on that weird branch, so we're going to prune that one. But we have that ability too, if we are all very clear on the goal here. The goal isn't just to have a community. Just having a community, again, just like the technical box of a community, is not going to inherently generate growth. But if we can take into consideration all of these foundational whys of why we want to bring this community to life, then let's go. Let's create the value, and then the growth will come from that.
Yeah. And I'll leave people with one thing to ensure. Find somebody within your community that's a community person, that's somebody who's built them or loves them, and get them on board as one of the first crazies. Because if you're not a community person and you're kind of trying to like mess around with it, you can spend a lot of time and have to prune a lot, as you said, your tree, because it's going to go everywhere really quickly, more like a weed. So I think if you have somebody who's a community, and the company, you'll see this in companies, community oriented people, that's their title. They're community members or community builders. Those companies understood the task and are building it. And you're right. You need to make sure you have your road map. You need to make sure you have your goals. You need to make sure you have your crazies that are big fans and fanatics about your community, but also engage with them. And you need that person who feels, I understand my goals and where I'm going to go. And yeah, they will shift. They will change, certainly as the product changes, the service changes. But it's really important, because once that community is built, if you make a transitional to a new solution, can you take part of that community? Yeah, you probably could. You're not starting from scratch. But if you're building only, and you're just throwing out, like you said, putting out an article like I do every week, you get like a few people that gets engagement, but at the end, you're just talking to a machine, sending it off. Right. But when you have a community and you're talking one-on-one to a human being, to another human being, that's really interesting. And that's what's going to be the differentiator down the road for big brands and companies. And I see this with the really big brands. I see this with Apple. I see this with the big ones who have the means, where other companies are going to have to start building on that, even small little enterprise ones. So yeah, I think it's important, and there's a lot of value in it, but it's work. It's not something that's easy. Like anything's easy. Like if you're in marketing, it's work, even though the whole world thinks you do nothing all day. It's a lot of work.
Everyone thinks we just draw pictures all day. And
well, that's what they think. Like post on Instagram. Well, after a coffee in the afternoon. Yeah, no, it's a lot of work. But it's a lot of fun when you have a really engaged community. And I feel it's like exactly like you were talking about, Walt Disney. If you meet other Walt Disney, fanatics, they talk about it forever and everybody's excited. But if you're not a fanatic, you're outside of the community, you're kind of like, what's the point? But if you listen to some people like, oh, you have to do this and this and this, within an hour, you feel like I know everything about it. I need to get there. I need to go and see this for myself. Right. So I think that's the key.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. And Andrew has been telling you you're spot on all day. Andrew, a very fantastic supporter of the show. So it's great to see you, my friend, as always.
There you go. See?
And this has been incredible. I have like half a page of notes. I hope the people who are watching have a half a page or more of notes of things that you can try when it comes to your ideas or concepts about communities and how it might contribute to you or your business growth. Hopefully like I said, I have a whole bunch of things that you could try. And if you were listening and you were like, oh no, I didn't disseminate any of the things I could try, reach out to me. I can share you my page of notes. But Olivier, what is the best place for people to find you if they would like to continue the conversation about communities for growth?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn's amazing. It's the easiest way to reach out. I almost always answer, unless you're just selling me something that I don't always answer. But anybody has questions, feel free to reach out. Together in our community, we can build it up and for sure answer. And I think that's really a great way to reach out, meet up, connect. LinkedIn.
Yeah, let's do it. So it's definitely worth your time to connect. Highly recommend that. And for all of you who were watching today, who were not in the chat, feel free to stay in the conversation. All of the things that we talk about on the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show are not just a one stop, come and listen to this and solve all my problems in 60 minutes. That'd be great, except that's not the way it works. And so if communities for growth is something that is part of your exploration right now, don't let this be the last conversation that you participate in that arena. Let it be the first of many. And the best place to do that, get connected to Olivier, get connected to me, get connected to Andrew, get connected to each other, see who RSVP'd for the event, and like get into the conversation, because this is a conversation where you get to develop your answer instead of a place where someone just gives you the answer. With that, my friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Olivier, thank you so much for all of your wonderful golden nuggets. And
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my great pleasure. And until next time, everybody, permission to do you.